All right, guys, third time's the charm. We've been trying to broadcast. We haven't had a good enough connection, but I think this time we've got it. The guards are with us. The hair guards are with us, right, Joe?
Excellent. That's
yeah.
right.
So back from Tokyo, and we had an opportunity to work with this man, Josh Lamonaca from Menspire in London. Didn't want to pass up that opportunity to bring you some incredible creative barbering. You can see he's already pre-sectioned here, and let's get on with the show. Let's see what Josh has for us today. I know it's going to be incredible. Hey Josh, say hello to the Hairbrained community.
All right, hello everyone. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my model here. What we want to achieve is something quite soft and movable. Now when he came in, from the top the hair was quite long. So from the front it pushed the hair down. So rather what we want to do is take off some length through the top section and retain the length at the front so that he can wear it really nice and casually. Again, we're going to work something quite creative and classic at the same time, just to really kind of mix up, like Gerard said, you know, the fundamentals of men's hairdressing and again some hairdressing too.
So it seems to be kind of a thing that you do. I think, you know, we've seen a big barbering resurgence, but what I've always noticed about your work is you're kind of mixing precision haircutting with barbering to kind of create something a little bit special. How did you kind of get to that?
So for me, I was always inspired by hairdressers and the way that they worked with such clean sections. It was almost like an artist form. And for me, in everything that I do, I enjoy getting things perfect, although it's very difficult. But I like the challenge, and that's what's important to me. So for me, my background started in barbering, and then I got into hairdressing. And it wasn't until I really got into hairdressing I realized that I wasn't a very good barber. And so that motivated me to really progress and become, you know, a lot cleaner with my work.
Super, super interesting. Again, I love the way you combine it. So now you're working back, and what is it that you're hoping to achieve here?
So at the moment I'm just working through this little disconnection. As you can see from the previous haircut, okay, I'm just working through that weight from the top so that it sits really nicely when it blow dries backwards. So I'm just working a little bit of graduation on this right hand side. Just
so
connecting.
real technical and kind of just building that shape up.
That's right.
So you've got this kind of asymmetric sectioning going on, and will the haircut have some asymmetry to it?
Yeah, there will do. So what I'm going to plan to do is work with a really nice strong skin taper on one side of the head, and I'm going to work something symmetric onto the other side as well. So it's going to be strong and soft and soft. Okay, so we're going to work with something similar.
So lots of kind of subtle asymmetries, and you'll be working with scissor, and will you be doing some clipper work as well?
Yeah, I'll be doing some clipper work as well. I think it's really important that we sort of get to see a little bit of everything, because that's where men's hairdressing really lies at the moment, through scissor work and clipper work.
Lots of great people watching, our buddy Steve Kim, and of course lots of people from around the world saying hi. Ivan Duda, of course, Jay Mahmood. He's in there giving you support. Lots of love coming in.
Yes,
guys,
sir.
we'd love your questions for Josh. He's a very respected educator and has a lot of information to share. So if you have questions about the technique or anything at all, go ahead and share that with us. So I have a question. You know, lots of times with barbering, people think that they just go right in and they start clippering in the shortest stuff. I noticed that you're really actually building up a technical shape first. You know, what's your thought process there?
So for me, when it comes to building up a shape, it's all about structure and being able to create a structure before we go in with the sides. Now, I think commonly barbering tend to go in with the sides first, but then you have to blend outwards because of the graduation. Now what happens then is you cut the top, and then from the corner you have to cut the corner off, and it spreads the graduation, so you end up having to re-go over again, and then it becomes quite time consuming. So for me, it's important that we build a valuable shape through the top so that the client can wear it, and then we can see exactly what we want to create on the sides, where we want it to go really square or we want to build up some graduation.
Yeah, it's a great point there. It's that, you know, something that, so I started off as a barber. I had my master's barber's license when I was a kid, but then quickly went to Sassoon, and I had to kind of like relearn everything. And that point that you just shared there was a big one for me, about just kind of building these extreme corners and pushing the hair around, and then getting to that point where you can really appreciate building the shape. All right, so let's get back into your technique. You're starting to work your way around the head here.
That's right. So I'm just working all the way around the head. Now, as I mentioned, that this side wants to come back. Okay, and as I follow it, I'm going to continue with the graduation, bring that graduation slightly forward so my knuckles are going to be facing towards the ground this side so that the hair can be worn slightly more forward.
So you basically worked all the way around the head.
That's right.
And are you building any more weight on that side, or are you following
On this side,
through?
it's going to be slightly more flatter. Reason being is because this side actually pings out. It doesn't go back so well unless it's going to be really long. So I've taken that into account and analysed that to the point where actually if it lays flatter, okay, it will be a lot squarer for him.
So I did notice you spent a lot of time before sectioning and before wetting the hair, kind of pushing it around and observing it. What kind of things were you looking for? What would you share with people in terms of what to look for?
So during the consultation, I was really trying to analyse the hair density, the way that the hair sits naturally, mostly where the hair will sit naturally and beautifully, because for me, if something is forced, then it becomes very difficult for the client to wear the hair. So if it's organically dressed, okay, or sectioned, then we know that everything is going to sit well and in proportion.
I think that's a great point, especially with men's hair, because if it's forced in the styling, it can look kind of overly feminine and lose that kind of masculine edge. So really paying attention to the way that it wants to go seems like it would be a big part of the finish. Do you work mostly with the clipper or the scissor, or do you 50-50?
I would say I'm 50-50. I think that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy, no doubt, working with the clipper to get really clean execution when it comes to skin tapering or skin blending. And then again through the top, I like things to sit well. So for me it involves accuracy. Because if something's accurate, then it's going to sit correctly.
Right. Okay, so I can see that you've taken down that top section now, which was kind of an asymmetric, it wasn't quite a triangle, but was it a bit more kind of a diamond shape?
Sure, it was almost a diamond shape, and the reason for that is because I want the weight to lay correctly on this right hand side so that it just flutters back really easily and gently. So what I'm going to work through on the top now, as I mentioned from the beginning, is that there's a lot of weight here on the top, okay, and there's a lot of length, and what that's doing is pushing down on the front. Because the hair's a medium texture, all that weight will cause that front to just drop. So rather what we want to do is just build up a nice strong square shape, and then what happens is this front that we want to retain will just sit over the top, and it will become really nice and flawless.
So you can see we've got our good friends Barry Bakken and DJ in the back, and Barry's manning the questions, so if anybody has any great questions, go ahead and share them with us. Looks like we've got one coming in from Robin Muchow. When do you choose to comb underhand rather than over? It's always a great question. So inside the palm or over the palm. I'd love to hear your answer on that, Josh.
Okay, so for me, I have a simple ideology of to create weight, comb over, and to reduce weight, comb under. So that for me is a great way to really try to remember when to comb over and when to comb under.
That's great. I think, the most important thing, in hairdressing is to think about why we do things. Even if we do them differently, if you've got a reason that makes sense for you, then it's, part of your philosophy, and that's the most important thing. Excellent. So layering through here on the top.
That's right. So I'm just working a basic square shape. Now, what you'll notice is I'm not coming straight through the very front. Rather, I'm coming in the way that the hair wants to be styled. So I know that my blow dry is eventually going to take this hair slightly over to this direction. So I'm going to cut it in this way, working one side through and then the other, just to complete that square shape. And that's just the way that I want to be able to mainly style the hair.
All right, super important question coming in from Phil Cooper, who's always watching and always sharing, and this is probably the most important question of the day. He wants to know, where do you shop?
Where do I shop?
He must dig your style.
All right, sweet. I think both of these items that I'm wearing are from Topman, and this hat's actually from Germany.
Nice. So unfortunately, we don't sell any of it on HP Pro, but we'll try.
Nice try.
We'll try.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But Topman, we can support that. Awesome. Okay, so layering through here, and your section's kind of pivoting a bit.
They're not pivoting as such, but rather I'm working down one channel first, and then I'm going to work through the other.
Excellent. And you mentioned already that you're thinking about the styling. So you kind of pushed his hair around originally to find the direction that it grows, and
That's right.
you really kind of sectioned it off thinking about your end result in mind.
That's right. So as you can see around the crown, okay, if you get real close into there, you can see that I'm not touching the crown in the places that in fact will ping up. So you can see that this crown here is laying completely naturally down, okay, and rather, if I was to take this up with my layering, then I'm pretty sure that this will just start to ping out, and I want this to lay nice and flat and soft.
It's obviously a huge challenge that people have cutting men's hair, especially that kind of pokey area. So in this case, you're going to kind of disconnect from it.
I'm going to leave that with the graduation, and I'm going to work the top through the layering. So what you can see now from this right hand side is that I have my guide from my previous, okay, and this is my new side. So effectively from the top I've worked one channel, and I'm going to work the second channel, and this is just going to give me a nice basic shape facing the mirror onto this side, using that as a landmark.
Again, guys, we've got Barry manning the questions there. We'd love your technical questions or your career questions. Got lots of successful people in the room here that are passionate and want to share. So don't be shy. That's what we're here for. So tell us a little bit about the scissor that you're working with. I see that you've got your own Menspire scissor.
That's right. So I'm working with a 5.5 inch scissor. And the reason for that is because when I want to work with precision, rather, if I'm working with a larger blade, okay, it's going to go straight past the second knuckle. So for me, it's important that if you have a smaller blade, maybe a slightly finer blade as well, you can really achieve a lot more precision, because you're only taking around that much off the head per time.
Yeah, we get that a lot. I think people automatically think barbering, I got to use the 7-inch scissor. Do you use a larger scissor when you do scissor over comb?
I use a 6.5 for scissor over comb, and I think it's about adequate to, really cover a larger surface area.
So the 5.5 for the technical shape,
That's
and
right.
then the 6.5
So if I'm
for
working
scissor over
through
comb.
graduation through the back or the sides, or layering through the top, I'll work with a 5.5 and then a 6.5 for any scissor over comb, just to complete that surface area.
So here's a great question from Kylie Tate. When cutting men's hair, it seems you try to tailor to the hair texture, but do you also tailor to the lifestyle as well?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that, we concentrate on their lifestyle and what they do for a profession. Like I mentioned, with a style that's either being forced, then of course, it's not going to suit the client. So it's important that you have to work with the hair growth patterns and again with their lifestyle. So
your Menspire, tell us a little bit about that, because I know it's a salon and an academy.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about Menspire, how you guys started, and what it's like in the academy and the salon, and do you work in both places?
Sure. So Menspire formed just under 3 years ago with myself and Samuel Palmer. We both had a lot of experience in hairdressing backgrounds, and we really wanted to try and form a salon experience within the men's market. So we wanted to offer high-end barbering, but with a salon experience, with appointments and refreshments, etc. And 2.5 years ago, myself and Sam, we got together and really started to throw ideas around to try and create this hub and community of barbering and hairdressing.
And where is Menspire? Is it in London or outside of London?
So Menspire is based in St Albans, Hertfordshire, which is about 15 to 20 minutes just outside of London.
And so you've got the salon, and how's that working? You guys call it a salon, or do you call it a barber shop?
We call it a salon. We call
Yeah.
it Menspire Salon,
Right.
because again, like I say, we want our clients to feel like they're having an experience as opposed to just a haircut.
Right.
The academy, thankfully, is just across the road. It was rather a blessing that it came up. The place before was to let, and it came up, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity to really be able to take that. So the academy started January this year, so it's not even been open for 1 year, but
Excellent.
we've been educating nationwide for 2-3 years.
Awesome. All right, let's get back to the technique. So I see you're dropping that front down now.
That's right.
And what's the plan?
So what I'm going to do, like I said, I wanted to retain the very front. So I want to really enjoy that front being longer than the midsection. Because we know that the head dips at the very front, okay, when the hair dries up, we'll probably achieve a really nice balance. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of texture now, right at the point of disconnection. So I'm just going to work through the scissor, working some slicing at each section from the midsection to the front section.
So it'll just weave in some longer pieces.
That's right.
And give you a little bit more movement through the front.
That's right. So if you can see that shortest point where we've laid it, okay, I'm going to work some V-cutting, slicing through. So it looks like we have short, long, short, long, short, long, and then we have the rest here, which I'll come to personalize afterwards.
Great. So it sounds like we have a question coming in. Barry, what do we have?
So we have a couple technical questions. Recommendations on a mark of scissor, and also if you prefer scissor over comb or clipper over comb.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So scissor over comb for me is the pinnacle of precision. I find that clipper over comb is also great, but we must know when to use it. For example, if we're working with Asian hair or very, very straight hair, it can be a very useful technique to be able to create a square shape. But any refinement, etc., for me, I personally believe that we should work with scissor over comb to really embrace that precision.
You know, there are some hairdressers out there, I think, that still believe that everything should be done with the scissor. So you definitely don't believe that. You believe that a combination of clipper and scissor and knowing when to use each tool. And I think that, you know, we're seeing that evolve even with, you know, kind of die-hard precision cutting hairdressers starting to accept the clipper work can be very precise as well. And I think that's great.
This is a beautiful conversation because for me, when I started out, I enjoyed working with the scissor and the clipper. And throughout my time of learning and developing, I always understood that hairdressers didn't really like people using clippers in the salon. And you know,
it was conceived like as a cheap, quick thing to do.
That's right.
But it's not so cheap and quick when you start to do it really well.
But
though,
this is
it?
the thing. This is the thing. The purpose of a tool, you know, has beauty within it, depending on if you use it correctly.
Right.
So again, if you're using the tool for the correct purpose, then of course, no doubt, no one should negate using a clipper the same way that, you know, barbers shouldn't negate using scissors.
Excellent. So again, lots of love coming in. Your buddy Jay says, you know, you're one of the most humble, talented people he knows, and he loves what you're doing. Everyone's loving the way this is sitting and working. So catch us up now. You
Okay.
kind of weave that front in,
That's
and
right.
now you added a little bit of product.
So what you can see now is we've got much greater silhouette. Reason being is because we've reduced the weight from the top and we've retained the weight through the front, and now you can see that's just sitting slightly over the top, almost like just a bridge just working over. So I'm going to blow dry this now. I'm going to dry this back and place this with some volume.
Okay, so what product was that? That was one of yours, DJ. You know, DJ has his own product line. He used one of the pops.
So that was the paste. So the reason why I use the paste is because I want something quite natural. I don't want it to look too greasy, because if it gets too greasy, it's only going to flop down.
It's going to be soft and fluffy as well. All right, so blow drying now. You're using kind of a vent brush type brush. Is that the type of brush you're normally using for men's work?
Yeah, that's right. So if I want to get something quite smooth, then really I want to work with a vent brush. Now what's interesting is that where I start my blow drying is the same place where I started my cutting. So what you can see is I'm working through my graduation, and I'm going to work all the way around to the other side before coming through to the top.
Now, do you ever use a round brush on your men's work?
Yeah, I'm going to be using a round brush towards the very front.
Yeah, to kind of polish that.
That's right, just to get that volume and that height and, and a little bit of roundness as well.
Yeah. Again, I think things have changed so much. When I was a young hairdresser, a young barber, you know, you couldn't use a round brush on men. There were so many rules of what you could and couldn't do. And I think all that has been kind of broken now. And I think it's kind of evolving, which is great. And there's become so much more of a hybrid of what's acceptable for men, what's acceptable for women. And I think that's incredible. So for those of you that are just joining us, we're with Josh Lamonaca from Menspire in London. He happens to be in New York, and we couldn't pass up an opportunity to work with him. He's just worked the technical shape through the top using kind of very, very organic sectioning, a combination of graduation and layering. He's doing a bit of blow drying now, and then tell us what the next steps are after you blow dry.
Okay, so once I've finished blow drying, I'm going to just personalize the top, get it really nice and soft, and then I'm going to start my clipper work through the back and start adding some detail to the haircut.
Yeah, some people are interested. So the bottom's not done. He actually just did some graduation through the midsection and cut the top, and then is going to go in and do the clipper work. Now, I think for some, Josh, that might seem counterintuitive. A lot of people always go right in and they do the short stuff first, and then they do all this top later. So what's your thinking about doing the top first and styling it out, and then going in and doing the fade?
So for me, and I think, I'm sure you'll agree as well, I've really got a nice silhouette now. I've got the volume and the height, and the shape is nice and square, it's nice and compact. So for me to just go in with the clipper now, I'm just going to ease into my graduation and really just try to, you know, create a beautiful outline with this shape.
So it's making it much more visual for you. You've kind of put in the style, and then this is really just kind of the maintenance work around the edges. Yeah, and you know, the big picture, I think sometimes, you know, again, having that history of being a barber and a stylist, I think that sometimes stylists lose focus on the small details, and sometimes barbers lose focus on the big picture. So I think what you're doing here is combining those two together. By kind of getting all this styling in, you can kind of see the big picture and then go in on the small details.
That's right.
Where sometimes, you know, like a hairdresser might just kind of obsess about that style, but not have the precision in the little details. Love that mixture. All right, so going into the round brush now on the front here. Tell us a little bit about this.
So yeah, first of all, I really agree with you in terms of, you know, the mix between, the transition between the barbering and its precision, and the hairdressing and its shape. And I think that's what men's hairdressing now is really starting to form. So right now I'm just working on a round brush. Okay, just want to get that little bit of volume in through the front. I'm just going to lock that shape in. Okay, and then we're going to start to personalize the top.
So again, guys, we're here with Josh Lamonaca in New York City. So tell us what you've been doing. We're seeing you traveling all over, doing all kinds of exciting things. Tell us a little bit about what the past couple of months have been like for you.
So the past couple of months, I've basically been in the air for the most of it. And what we're doing at the moment is we're really trying to change the way that people think about men's hairdressing. Now that's rather a big goal, if you like, but you know, we really feel passionate about men's hair, and that's what we really want to try to achieve. So I've been over to, I mean, we met each other in Australia.
Yeah, we did. The first time Josh and I met was in Australia at the Hair Expo, and we had a great time. We got up on stage together, I think, within the first hour of meeting each other, and we had a blast.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, this whole year for me has been about traveling and really trying to expose our work at Menspire nationwide. So it started off, I think, over in March, where I went over to, I came here actually, in fact, and this is where, in fact, I met Jay, who's watching, hopefully, which was, you know, it was great for me because I see lots of people on Instagram who are doing some fantastic work, you know, the likes of Alilon, Zagat, James Mould, Ben Case, and all of these guys who are doing amazing stuff, and to be able to sometimes just say hello and meet these people is just fantastic.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you seem to have had a great presence on social media, really sharing your message, and tell us how that's affected for you. You know, rather than just staying in one place and doing one thing, you seem to be really building community and relationship. And are you finding that social media is a place where you're making lots of contacts?
For sure. I mean, let's face it, education is all about sharing. And if we're not getting together, then the reality is we can't grow as an industry. So to be able to meet like-minded people, even if, you know, you're a barber and these guys are hairdressers, etc., it's about their experiences. And their experiences are really what give us, you know, a certain amount of knowledge that we require for our own craft. So for me, it's so important that we can, you know, just, you know, let's say get on with each other firstly, and really try to, embrace each other's experiences, if you like.
And that's what Hairbrained's all about, and that's why we're so glad to be doing these broadcasts with people like Josh. So let's get back to the haircut. It looks like you're just doing some refining.
That's right, so I'm just personalising the haircut. Okay, just want to get this haircut really nice and soft, and the reason for that is I want this haircut to become movable. Rather, if it's just completely blunt through the top, rather it just becomes in a fixed position. So I'm just separating the hairs throughout on the top, okay, just to really add some texture and, like I say, keep it movable.
So lots of questions. Number one, about people who want to take education with you. Where should they look? And then second of all, more questions about your scissor, which is the Menspire scissor. Where can people find that?
Okay, sure. So if you head to www.menspire.co.uk, you can find our shop and you can find our academy, all online. If you're looking for UK courses, you'll find that online. We've also just opened up, thankfully, an academy in Canada, in Toronto. So if you're looking over for education that way, then you can find that on the site. And also we're working through a US tour in January as well. So if you're from the US, then you can find out information as well.
And super exciting announcement. Josh is going to be joining us in Long Beach for our next teach-in. So we haven't announced any of the educators yet, but if you've been watching this, you know, we'd love to give you a little heads up. We've got some incredible people, and Josh is going to be joining us in Long Beach on the main stage. That's Sunday, January 29th. We'll have over 12 educators, some of the best from all around the world, working together and doing a master jam. All right, so some pointing through the top, and now back to a little bit of blow drying. And what's next?
Okay, so we're going to work on the clipper work now.
All right, the moment you've been waiting for. We're going to see some exciting clipper work.
Okay, so I'm going to start off through the very side.
Just get a better angle here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to start off through the very side, okay? I want to try and keep all of this nice and dark through the mastoid bone, and we're going to work with a beautiful taper on the right-hand side of the nape and the left-hand sideburn. So what I'm going to do first of all is just work with the clipper. I'm just going to remove a little bit of bulk, working with a guard number 2, okay, and that's just going to set myself up for a beautiful little skin fade through the very sideburn.
So I see that you're working a lot by rocking the clipper with
That's
your
right.
wrist. Can you explain that technique?
Sure,
there?
so I'm just working with a really soft sort of C motion, just working the clipper outwards. And what that's doing effectively, same as if you was cutting graduation, you're literally working up and out. So
that's great, that slow motion movement, but then you're doing it in a very kind of consistent way.
That's right.
I think a lot of people miss that when they try to work with clippers.
That's right. I think it's quite common that people with a low experience just work with the clipper pretty much straight. And what happens then is you get a huge weight line. So what you can see by myself fanning out with this clipper, okay, I'm just creating a real soft graduation that I'm eventually going to scissor over comb afterwards.
So again, it's like you're getting in a basic shape.
That's right.
You're going through the process like you did it through the top. You put it in a basic shape, then you evolved it and refined it, and you're kind of working the clipper in a similar way.
That's right. So again, as I'm coming over to the right-hand nape, I'm just going to work from behind the ear with my number 2 guard.
Just get a better angle here.
And I'm just going to work it through the very center of the very neck.
So, you know, I think a lot of times people, if they don't have a lot of experience, maybe have a hard time choosing the right guard to start out with. So what was your thinking here in starting with the 2?
So the number 2 is, it's neither long and it's neither short. So it's a nice comfortable length for you to just assess, you know, the graduation that you're trying to build.
Right, because different hair responds differently. You put a 2 on someone's hair and it looks one way, you put a 2 on someone else's hair.
Sure.
So this is a good place for you to just kind of start.
I think
so
it's a
you
very
can see.
comfortable length for any kind of hair type, because no doubt if you put a number 2 on fine hair, then it's going to show up and look really transparent. And if you put a number 2 on thick hair, then it's going to look like, well, you haven't taken much off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to work in with what we call at Menspire a 00. So this is like the shortest you can get a clipper. So what you can see is that I'm just working a very clean line, still working with that fanning motion, just on the back of the neck.
So basically cleaning off all the stuff on the hair and
That's
starting
right.
to kind of reestablish the hairline that you want.
So I'm just putting in my baseline here before I start to blend it out. Again, same on this side as well. Okay, we've got our number 2 built in. And I'm just going to work from the sideburn, just taking it up.
Everybody saying hello, DJ and Barry, and they see you guys in the background. I'm happy to see you.
Jay, what clipper was that you were using? That one that.
So that was the Andes Supra.
Oh, the one you're telling me about. Okay.
That's a nice one, huh?
Man, this is staying with me, yeah.
You better fight him.
This right here. Ah, yes. Oh, but he has to write my petition, so no way. These are great, man.
It's got a nice weight to it,
Yeah,
actually.
weight is nice.
Nice weight.
So what I'm doing now is I'm just refining that number 2, okay, just before I start to blend out this line here. So what I'm going to work with is a technique at Menspire Academy that we call descending graduation. So what this means is from that number 2, we're going to work with the 1 open, which is a 1.5, then the 1, and then the 0.5. And what we'll find is that we'll just completely eliminate that line really softly.
I think this is going to be great for people to see because I think it's hard to find that balance between where the line is and how to fade it out.
Okay, so as you can see, my number 2, my graduation runs just behind the ear and slightly through the center of the neck. So what I'm going to do is work my 1.5 just underneath that number 2. And what you can see is this line is just going to gradually disappear. So that's my 1.5. Now I'm going to work with my number 1, and that number 1 is going to go just beneath the 1.5. And now I'm going to work with the 0.5, and that's going to work just beneath the number 1. And you can see that line is just gradually disappearing.
So obviously this has to be worked with a taper adjustment, and you're just sensitively adjusting that taper.
That's right. I'm just working to a specific method that is logical. So I'm basically coming down in guards to completely build that skin blend. So you can see, okay, we've just got a beautiful skin blend, and all I have to do now is basically scissor over comb the rest of this hair here. So if we do the same on this side as well. So just to remind everyone, we have a grade number 2 on the side here, and we have a 0, 0 on the very side here. Now this is a basic 0, okay, so that clipper before was even shorter than this, okay, so that right there is a 0 for me. So the number 2, and we have the 1.5. So that 1.5 is going to come just beneath the number 2.
So you have a question, and again, I know these kind of questions come up a lot. Michelle Gattenby wants to know, you know, why did you feel the need to put the line in first around the edges if you were going to fade it?
So for me, it's just logical to get, you know, a shape that I want to create. So for example, my graduation needs to be perpendicular to my skin line, just to get that real precise blend.
So the angle of the graduation here and then the angle of the
That's
outline,
right.
You made those
Parallel.
perpendicular
That's
or parallel to each other, and now you start fading out between the two.
That's
There's just so many different philosophies that I think that sometimes people wonder, you know, I think the most important thing is that there isn't a right and a wrong.
That's correct.
You have to try all these different methods, because some people would say, like I was taught never put in a line. And for 20 years, I never put in a line. And then I started to see all this great work happening where people putting in a line. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I wasn't taught the best way. So it's always good to be open and to see what's happening.
I think it's important that we'd never use the word always as well.
Always and never and always.
Well, that's correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm just finishing up this graduation. Okay, just before I start to work on some more detail.
It's looking incredible, lots of love coming in, people just saying how great it looks and how they would love to take a class with you. If you know, and I'm sure Josh will take a moment and go back through later and reply to any of these other questions and kind of where to find them. It's at menspire.co.uk.
.co.uk, that's
Yeah.
And
right.
Gerard, here's a question from Leona. How long does a gent's appointment take at your salon?
So in our salon, we have a requirement of 30 minutes for each gent, and possibly an extra 5 minutes if it's for the beard as well.
So you're working on 30-minute appointments.
That's right.
Yeah, does that sometimes feel like a challenge?
Not at all.
It's a perfect amount
Yes,
of time.
it's literally an adequate amount of time, I would say.
Great. So now you switch back to the scissor.
That's right.
And can you tell us a little bit about your thinking and why?
So I'm really just refining that graduation from that number 2 guard. Okay, if I left that number 2, okay, I think that it's going to be just a little bit too heavy and it won't grow out that nice. So I'm just refining the shape now with my scissor over comb, just building in that graduation from that skin level.
Any tips for people that maybe are having a tough time with scissor over comb? We find a lot of people have a challenge mastering scissor over comb.
So for me, I would say, first of all, stay patient and maintain your discipline. Again, working with and isolating your thumb or your fingers as such, then from that you can achieve anything.
So learning how to just move the thumb so that you've got a still blade
That's
and then an
right.
action blade, that helps a lot with the precision. Otherwise it can get a bit choppy.
That's right.
Just get a good angle.
And now you're going to work across into that longer side?
I'm actually going to place a nice strong line through the back, just so it almost looks really, just has some strength more so on this side. So again, just working something quite creatively as well.
So a lot of people are asking about you coming to Dallas. So I know you mentioned earlier you're having an event in Dallas.
That's right.
When and where?
So I think it's February the 1st or February the 2nd, Thursday the 2nd, that's right. Thursday the 2nd we'll be doing a look and learn seminar in the evening. You can find details on our website. And we are doing a 1-day course on Friday the 3rd, but there's only 1 space left.
So there's something, Kelly, maybe if you can get a shot of the way Josh is holding the comb. I think this is an important one that's often overlooked. Usually people that do scissor over comb really well, they hold the way he's holding in a C-shaping rather than kind of palming the whole comb. And that allows him to flip the comb and never stop the motion. I'm sure you can talk a little bit more because I know you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So again, it's important to just place the hair down so you can see the graduation and where our graduation is. And again, as Gerard said, to be able to flip it is really easy to utilize that technique. So you can see that I'm just placing it down, picking it up, and it's just a simple twist in the finger working with that C shape.
Yeah, it's a crucial because I think sometimes people actually just kind of glom the whole comb and then they switch to the opposite hand to comb it down.
Yeah.
And it takes longer and they never get the fluidity.
Especially in barbering, you need to be kind of efficient as well. Especially if you're running with a half an hour appointment. You know, you really need to be efficient in your technique.
Yeah, so for those of you just joining us, Josh started off with a technical shape. He cut the top using some asymmetry and organic sectioning. Then he did use a clipper to kind of begin the fading work. Detailed it a bit with various attachments and taper adjustments. And now he's going in to do the really, really fine work with scissor over comb. So again, some people are just joining in and wondering why you're not using a clipper. He actually did. The great news is you'll be able to go back and watch this video from the beginning all the way through to get the entire lesson. It'll live on our Hairbrained Facebook page forever.
All right.
Kirby has a question of how do you know how high to blend?
Oh, excellent question. So, depending on whether you're doing a skin fade or a skin taper, if you're working with a skin taper, you generally don't want to go above the occipital bone because you want to build up that weight. So, if you're working with a skin fade, ideally you don't want to go above the contour because you want to keep things really nice and square and masculine. So, that's a really, really interesting question because I think it's a question that people lack within the industry when it comes to men's hair. So, I hope that you can really use that to your benefit.
All right, so now again you've switched tools, and I think that that's obviously a big part of working with short hair really well is using different tools for different jobs. So why did you choose to change now to these edges?
So I'm working with the edges because no doubt when the hair is that short, the scissor you will never get a strong line from. So rather working completely with the T-edger, if you like, you just get that strength back in there. And again, I'm just going to work with that around the very neck here as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna come here and get some of these little hairs off for you. Any kind of tips on building a men's clientele? Anything like what's helped you guys at Menspire to become a successful men's salon?
I think you know, really being honest with your clientele and finding out what they like and what they dislike about their hair, to use that in the consultation and the way that you want to cut their hair. I think that many a time we have the obvious, you know, what we're doing today, and then the client will dictate exactly what they want with their hair. But the reality is sometimes what the client wants is not what the client can have. So we have to be honest with our clients as well, which I feel is really important.
So really becoming a designer. I think
right.
that's what hairdressers are great at, you know, is learning about trends and style and translating it. And maybe barbers traditionally have been a little bit more just service oriented, you know, short back and sides today, mate, okay, get in the chair. Where you're saying blend those two together, have an opinion, have a vision, and express it.
That's right, that's correct.
And you know, it's definitely, the men's market has evolved. I think, you know, short back and sides today, mate, doesn't really kind of fly anymore.
No.
And it sounds like that's what you guys are really working on at Menspire, creating that experience.
That's exactly it.
Customizing.
I think men want more. You know, they want more for their money as well. And the reality is, we have to deliver, because, as you mentioned, the industry for men's work is evolving, and men have become much more aware of their appearance over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, what about pricing? You know, how do you feel about people still believing that they should charge less for men?
So, again, I think it all depends on your area as well, because I know that, you know, if you're in an affluent area, then you have the ability to charge more. So, again, I think your area and your location is important, an important thing to factor in.
So again, lots of love coming in. You got lots of fans all over the world. Simon Kibler says, you're smashing it up, brother.
Yo, Simon.
Mikey Hanger, he says, you're killing it, bruv. Proper good cut. I guess that's meant to be with a Cockney accent.
Proper good cat.
A proper good cut, right on.
There's also a few questions about if you use thinning shears, and somebody also asked about a razor as well earlier.
Okay, cool. So for me, I don't negate any tool, because I truly believe that every tool has a particular purpose. So again, with the thinning shear, I believe that if you're using it correctly, then there's a use for it. You know, I wouldn't negate it just because there's a stigma about it.
Yeah, I think that's where hopefully hairdressing and barbering has evolved to, that all tools can be used well. You just need training and craftsmanship, attention to detail.
I'm just working a little bit of strength through the nape, just to give it some creativity. And again, as I mentioned, working with some symmetry.
So we're in New York City, so you can hear there's some excitement in the background. We've got some sirens going on. That's normal New York City action. This is not really nice detail here, getting that hairline in and the different fading and the shading, incredible. So what you're doing right now is you're removing that hair using the scissor, and I think again a lot of people perhaps are unfamiliar or uncomfortable with that. Can you explain this a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, I guess I get more precision in the way that I want to curve this line. If I wanted a complete straight line, then I might just go in with the clipper. But again, there's much more craft in a curved line working with your scissor, because you can angle your elbow, your hand, and your arm.
So a little more detail, more contour. And any tips? I think, you know, again, in the past when I've shared this with people, sometimes they're afraid they're going to cut someone.
Okay,
so
yeah.
any tips on avoiding
I guess
hemorrhage?
just making sure that your elevation with your blade, okay, is not completely on the scalp. I think just angling your blade, your static blade, okay, slightly out, okay, you'll achieve a much closer cut to the skin.
Yeah.
Okay, without, go on.
It's something you can practice on your own hair.
That's
or
right.
on a boyfriend or something on their wrist. Okay, let's see what other questions we have for you.
Suggestions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've taught it before once or twice. Yeah. Because, you know, at Sassoon, we didn't use any clippers at least the majority of the time. So you had to go in and clean hairlines like that, and people would just freak out. So you should have seen my arm at the end of the week. Because I have 20 different students trimming my arm hair. Yeah, the subtlety there, the subtlety of the beauty. All right, so what's happening now, Josh?
So I'm just refining through the back, okay, just connecting that graduation into that strong line. And that's it really. I'm just going to soften it all up, get some more products in there, and that's it.
So your whole image is coming together beautifully. I love the combination of technical shaping, organic sectioning, clippers, scissors. I think it's a beautiful modern way to think about all hair, not just men's hair. That's a question. Do you cut any women's hair anymore?
I don't, other than my mother's hair.
Right on. And it's
Saying that, Jay cut my mum's hair once, which was really interesting for myself.
right on.
So yeah, no, only my mum's hair at the moment.
Yeah. And did you ever, or have you always really focused on
Yeah,
men's?
so my women's training had come from Hob Salons, London.
Right.
With,
Great chain of salons
yeah,
there.
with such like Darren Bain, who was a great mentor for me, and Akin Knitsi, of course, and all the guys there that were there at my time as well, Sean Dawson, who really were fantastic mentors.
Small world.
for
I'm
me.
connected to those guys. Darren was at Sassoon's, and then Sean we know for years. It's such a small world now that we're all connected.
Amazing, amazing guys. Especially when I started out in barbering, and you know, I wanted to give hairdressing a go, in which I did, and they were the perfect guys for me to sort of, you know, liaise with and learn from. And that's how, you know, most of my technical skill had come from after, you know, obviously developing it into my barbering.
Now, what are you looking for as you're cutting right now?
So I'm just looking for any weight areas and just more softness, okay? Because I know that the moment that he styles his hair, I want it to lay completely organically, okay, so that it grows out really nice and well, and that's it really.
Just filtering through those ends with the point of the scissor.
That's right.
And we have a technical question from Sabrina, wondering how you like to handle cowlicks and swirls in the hair.
Say that again.
How do you
like to
handle-
like cowlicks and natural growth patterns?
Okay, sure. So as I mentioned, through the crown area at the very beginning, I section it out completely organically so that it falls naturally and sits really well. So really, just got to be conscious of any hair growth patterns, especially with men's hair, because it's a lot stronger than what you'll find with women's hair. And I think that every haircut with a man's haircut, it has to be uniquely defined and tailored specifically to their hair texture and you know, their hair growth patterns.
Yeah, so you have to just kind of have the experience and take them one at a time. And I guess the thing that always jumps to mind for me is either keep them long enough to lay down or cut them short enough that it doesn't matter.
That's right.
You know, when you're dealing with cowlicks and jumpy things, it's that mid-range where you can't control them unless you put a lot of product in. So either long enough that they can live or short enough that it doesn't matter. Or in between, sell them a lot of clay.
Leanna Gillen is wondering if your salon offers colors for men as well.
So we don't offer much colour, but it's certainly something that we're considering.
Yeah, I think for years, you know, I know for a fact product companies and color companies have really been trying to encourage it, and they've made more and more products that will cater to men, things that'll work faster and maybe just blend gray. So, you know, I think the tools are there. Now we as hairdressers need to
We
be
have to
able to implement it. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think men
Yeah.
don't want to sit in a salon getting their hair coloured for
No,
an hour and a half.
35 foils, flipping through a magazine. You
That's
know?
right.
Yeah, so it's got to be the right product, and I think they're out there now. I think every major color manufacturer has like a men's line that works quickly and, you know, is meant not to fade out orange, because those are the things we always hear. Yeah, and they don't want it to be a big process.
Sure.
All right, so going in again, another whole other level of refinement.
That's right. So I'm just now refining my shape and my graduation after I've placed in my line and my other line as well. So you can see that almost what we have is some strength through this right hand side and some strength through the left hand nape, and it's reversed in the fact that we have it tapered at the right hand neck and we have it tapered at the left hand sideburn as well. So just refining my graduation, and that's me done.
Excellent, excellent. So, you know, these last minute or so that you have time to talk to this audience, What are some tips you give people that you found have helped with your success in growing your business and getting to be a great hairdresser?
So for me, as I mentioned previously, and I couldn't stress enough, that patience is really a virtue. If you're patient with your craft and your skill and your business, then there will be blessings for you within that. And again, being disciplined as well, I think is really important, because when you have discipline, you have control. And if you have control, then you have control in your technique, and you have control in your business and your colleagues and your staff, effectively.
I think such a great message, and something that we can never say too often. Yeah, that it is a craft, and that's where the patience comes in. It's just like becoming a great pianist. You don't just sit down at the piano, and even if you've got God-given talent, you're not going to become a great pianist in a week.
That's
You've
right.
got to practice, 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 practice. And it's the same with our craft and hairdressing. There's no quick fix or easy way to become great. But I think I love what you said there. If you focus on that, then the good things come your way. It's the way the universe kind of works and balances
much,
things
that's
out. Yeah. So it's been our pleasure to be here with Josh. He's done this amazing haircut with all these subtle little asymmetries. Again, if you've joined us late, you can go back to the beginning at any time and watch this lesson all the way through. I'm going to let Josh finish up here and share his last words and thoughts and show you the whole look.
All right, so let's just have a look.
Lots of love coming in, Josh. Fantastic, amazing. Thank you. People are loving it.
Okay, so just to confirm what we've done, started out with a very organic sectioning pattern in regards to this gentleman's hair. Now, we wanted to retain the very front of the hair because that's where we wanted to achieve the volume and the height. Through the top is where there was a lot of weight, and what we've done is we worked with a square layer, although we directed it slightly diagonal, working completely perpendicular to the head. Worked with some graduation on this side, okay, just so that in fact we can get this kind of small flutter to just run back. And again, we wrapped it all the way round, so at this side, okay, it's just pretty much sitting nice and flat and just gently and softly onto his head, okay. As you can see around the crown, okay, is where we took a lot of detail in the fact that, well, we want this to lay really nice and controlled, okay, so you don't see anything pinging up anywhere. Now for the detail, we worked a nice strong shape through this right hand side, which really kind of embraces his strong cheekbones, and we worked with a strong shape through the nape of the neck, so we have some form of symmetry and balance. And again, what we have again through this side is a nice subtle taper, and again on the left, on the right hand nape, we have a beautiful soft taper as well. So we kind of got a nice balance of symmetry throughout the whole haircut. And again with the blow dry, just sort of softly throwing it up, again something that's movable with texture as well. So he can really just shake that up. I mean, even if he shakes his head, if you just shake your head for me, sir. Okay, and that's pretty much the worst it's going to look. Okay, so other than that, that's my haircut I present for you today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for sharing your art and your love with us. Great man. He's going to be joining us for teach-in on January 29th in Long Beach at the ISSE show. So we hope to see you there and come out and support us. Peace, man. Thanks, brother.
Thanks very much.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Love it.
Main Entrance, for letting us use your space.
No problem. Josh, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, cool.
We'll see you guys.